Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Jason.
Hello, everyone.
And Stoney.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going.
It's going.
We are in January, and I am unhappy with the fact that it has gotten hot again.
It was warm out there today. I was really shocked, but
Well, technically, half
days.
of January's gone already.
I know. It's unbelievable, right?
That's crazy.
I think this year's going to fly by just like 2023 did.
Well, it's according to Nostradamus, it's going to be a pretty eventful year.
Uh-oh.
Well,
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
I've got some news.
Uh-oh.
I will be retiring
Oh,
from my current employer here within, I would say, the next month.
really?
wow.
Oh, that's soon.
Yes. So
Okay.
my life is fixing to change.
Wow.
And let's see what...
See where the wind takes you.
where the wind takes me, So
Well,
we'll
I
see.
would like to say, on behalf of our listeners and myself and the Retrospect podcast, us knowing what you did for a living, thank you very much for basically writing that blank check for us and doing what you did. We appreciate you, and you're a good man.
Oh, well, I thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been a wild ride,
Yes.
but I think my time has come to an end there, and it's time to see what new things life has for me.
That's
so,
awesome.
Well, it might give you a little time to research some stuff on the podcast.
yeah, I actually have more time now,
Yeah.
I'll be able to do some more stuff.
That
so.
3-inch stack of papers will go to 6 inches.
Well,
Yes,
Maybe
exactly.
it will.
Well,
So what we got on the books for today?
How about we go with some predictions?
Yes.
What are your predictions
yeah,
for the
what's
year?
going to happen this year? What do you think's going to happen?
I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening. Well, first of all, I'm turning 30 this year. So that's already a big thing. That's not a prediction, but that's a fact.
30 is that's a big year.
I've talked about it already, but
If we're going to go that route, I'm turning 60.
There you go.
I'm turning 60.
Okay.
If I live that long.
Oh, hey, stop that.
The last couple of years, I may not make
I don't
it.
need you putting that mojo out into the world.
Man, goodness gracious.
Yeah. I think there's a lot. I think that we're approaching that time where I know this is going to be an election year, so I think there's a lot of stuff with that that's going to be up in arms and stuff. But I think we're in that like sweet spot where I said this before about last year. And this is my general prediction. There's some more specific ones that we can get into, but the big picture for me right now is like I said at some point, during last year, that this felt like the first time that it was the first time that everyone was really participating on a lot of things. I felt like in the world, in art, and in media, and a lot of stuff like that, because like we were at that sweet spot where. After 2020 and the pandemic and everything got all messed up and everything, it lasted for probably like a year, or in some places almost 2 years, where like things weren't the same or work isn't the same, and I feel like in 2023 this was the first year where everyone was putting forth their best foot forward, because everyone was like back at it again, or was back in a new routine, or was excited to make new stuff again. So I felt like that was that, and I feel like there's going to be a continuation of that, because once we start like tiptoeing on almost 5 years since the pandemic, I think that like it's going to be one of those like remember when kind of things, and I think that the world is changing in that way, and I think a lot of people that made life decisions after the pandemic, either if they stuck with it, they're still going, and if they didn't, they're back to what they did before. But the people that did stick with it, people that are now in the entertainment industry or doing podcasts and things like that, like us, for instance, we'll be, we'll be approaching that for us. And it's like, it's things like that where like, I feel like we're in this new checkpoint almost in history.
Well, I found this little survey. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's actually a worldwide survey, since we are a worldwide podcast.
That's right.
So I thought this was interesting. This survey, they say they surveyed 25,000 people across 34 countries. And they had a range of topics from technology, the environment, world security, and a bunch of other things. And I found out that it says here that 71% of those respondents said that there will be more extreme weather events in my country in 2024 than there were in 2023.
I'm pretty sure in this state specifically, we hit record numbers for a whole month.
Yes.
Which is a record that we had record-breaking numbers.
Getting warmer. I just think we've entered another cycle.
Well, it's funny you said that. Let me throw something in. That is actually one of Nostradamus's predictions for 2024. The climate crisis will become more apparent, and he predicts that it will get even worse. And his words specifically are, the dry earth will grow more parched, and there will be great floods when it is seen. He also predicted extreme weather events and world hunger based off of the weather.
Okay.
So I'm just throwing that in there. Not trying to interrupt you, but I thought that was...
I think that's pretty... I find it interesting that Nostradamus says this, and here you got this worldwide survey kind of echoing that a little bit.
Yep, that's why I threw it in there.
And they got, I'm looking at some of these things. The level of immigration into my country will increase.
Wow.
71% believe that. AI will lead to many jobs being lost in my country in 2024. 64% said that.
I agree with that.
Office workers will spend more time working in the office than home. 59%.
Wow.
Believe that.
That's a pretty close one.
Donald Trump will be reelected as president in the United States. 35% of the world population believes that.
Really?
And the war in Ukraine will end in 2024. 31% believe that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, there's something he has about a war, but it's also a lot of people believe in the interpretation of this. The king of the Isles will be driven out by force. He believes that he is referring to King Charles III. Soon after a disastrous war, a new king will be anointed, who for a long time will appease the earth. Persistent attacks on both himself, and his second wife, and Harry will replace him as king. He is the spare heir, or has no mark of a king.
Very specific.
That's how is that?
It's also very.
But he's also the guy who predicted COVID, Hitler, a couple of the world wars, and things like that too. So this is very specific here.
Well, I've heard that 2024. I've heard that there's going to be an economic crisis, and I hope not.
Right.
But that's what I hear. But, I've heard of economic crises over the years. So we'll see. But they also said this is going to be a big year for elections, even dubbed the biggest election year in history by The Economist, with some 4 billion voters set to head to the polls for regional, legislative, and presidential elections across 60 countries.
Wow.
So it's going to be a lot of change happening, I think, politically.
Oh, yeah.
I really do. So, but
it's one of those things where there's a decision to be made, and we can all act upon it, and put forth our vote, put forth our voice on that matter. And so there's these moments every 4 or 8 years where you get a chance to do that, and it feels like we're at the precipice of that again, which that's exactly what it is with the election year. And I feel like we're at the place where either change can happen or same thing as before can take place, or who knows. But
You know,
a big thing where I think a lot of numbers start to change, a lot of things start to fluctuate, and everyone tries to make matters better or worse until
yeah. I mean, it's
during this season.
I'm somewhat of a. I think the war in the Middle East is going to get worse. I think the Israeli Hamas. I think Iran is going to get involved.
They're already involved.
Well, I think a little bit more direct
Mm-hmm.
than they are now. I mean, they're kind of involved indirectly with Hezbollah, but I think that issue is not going away anytime soon. The Ukraine deal, as soon as people stop making money off of it, that war will stop. But as long as it's a good money laundering operation, then there'll be a war, and I say that with quotations. But yeah, I think there's some things going to happen.
Well, I found a survey also that 75% of the people in this survey believe that Netanyahu will be unseated as Israeli prime minister.
Wow.
But,
Well, when we had Rabbi Weinstein on, I mean, I believe he mentioned something to the effect that there is an element of the Jewish bloc that is, they don't like Netanyahu, that much. I mean, it'd be very interesting to see how, I think his fate is going to rest on how this war with Hamas goes and kind of what happens with all that. That's just kind of my take on that. But, I mean, you never know how these things play out. I mean, I'm always looking for the wild card out there. What's the unknown? Where's the person coming out of left field or the issue that's coming out of left field that no one is even thinking of?
right.
That just changes the whole thing on a drop of a dime. I mean, that's what I'm waiting to see happen.
Since COVID, we've gone over 40,000 U.S. car crash deaths, and 60% of the people in this survey believe that we will exceed that number again.
Wow.
Well, I mean,
80% of the people in this survey believe the world will be hotter in 2024 than it was in 2023.
How unfortunate. I think we talked about this recently on some of the previous episodes, that India is kind of becoming more populated than China.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's also a number of things that go into that as well. I have something right here that says in 2023, India became the world's most populous country. And in 2024, that population growth will register in economic terms as well. India is investing in infrastructure and courting foreign investments, while China is investing in apparently aircraft carriers and also turning its gaze inward to deal with the unemployment of youth and sectors crashing.
Well, Modi...
some of the evidence, I think, is because also Apple is like aggressively trying to get all their stuff out of China.
Right.
It's like a big thing of that.
Modi is the prime minister of India. And in this, it's funny. We didn't even plan this,
right.
But 85% of the people believe that Modi will remain the prime minister of India after the country's 2024 elections, which you brought the elections up, because he has a sky-high 60-plus approval rating. And you can actually kind of say a reasonable claim to be the most popular democratically elected leader in the world.
Wow.
They have the most population. He's got a plus 60% approval rating. And, what is our president, like in the upper 20s now or something?
He's not doing very well. Yeah, I think what you need to really watch right now, because I was listening to one of those a news channel on the radio, and they were talking about Apple looking to kind of diversify where its production facilities are.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about the challenges of them maybe wanting to relocate or put some of their foundries in India.
Mm-hmm.
and Malaysia and those kind of places outside of China without upsetting the Chinese, because you have established factories with established kind of supply chains.
They're still staying in the areas that support child slavery.
That'll be interesting to see how these tech companies kind of manage that kind of a somewhat of a transition, what I call like a part way transition, to not be so utterly dependent upon one country for everything, because I think COVID kind of bit them in the butt a little bit. And to have, multiple places that you can turn to be able to produce chips and stuff like that. So that's something I thought was interesting to hear about, how kind of that delicate diplomacy to go into China and say, listen, we're not going to build a factory here. We're going to build it in India. And they probably have promises for jobs and stuff like that in that country. And because, they're trying to grow their country, and that's what they're hitching the train to. And that may be threatened. And if that's threatened, then it'd be very interesting to see how some of these tech companies kind of manage that, especially Apple.
Speaking of tech companies, 75% of the people in this survey believe that OpenAI will release ChatGPT 5 or ChatGPT 4.5 Turbo.
Wow, okay.
So
what can the new AI do? That's like, I'm just trying to think.
At this point, it's diminishing returns. I think,
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Does it come closer to real time? Because right now it only does up to about 2 years ago. Maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago, it really doesn't have any new information in what it's learning. Maybe they'll be bringing that closer to real time, because if you ask a question about real time, it's not going to give you a very good answer because it doesn't have that information built into its model. What if they're going to be getting that closer to real time? That would be pretty good if they did that.
They would have to somehow tie its systems into to kind of predate its own creation, so to speak. I don't know. I'm just curious, what more can AI do? Okay, even if you make it real time, okay, what's the next step for it? Beyond that, I don't know. Maybe it can anticipate questions. Or I don't know what what that could be, But here, I've got something here. It says, in Asia, China is sending incrementally intensified signals of potential military action in Taiwan. And that's something we need to worry about, too.
Yeah.
America's preoccupation with Ukraine, Israel, and now the Red Sea limits deployable resources to a potential fourth front, opening a window for China to exploit Western weakness and fulfill its one China policy. And then also, a Latin American theater could also open somewhere along the border of Venezuela and Guyana, with Nicolas Maduro harnessing expanded oil exports to fund a potential invasion of the Essequibo. I believe if I'm pronouncing it right. So, I think that area is ripe for definitely something going on there, something happening, and kind of shifting to more domestic. I find this interesting here. And he goes, I expect a cultural shift among young people in America toward traditional values in a new year.
Oh yeah, 100%. I've seen that started already. A little bit.
All you have to do is look at Reels page on any social media app to see that this generation is facing the harsh reality of loneliness, depression, purposelessness, relationship angst, anger, and anxiety. Life has become a virtual reality in which the truth is whatever we make it. Mm-hmm. And sadly, this generation is pretty terrible at defining meaning.
Yeah.
It may be easy to shrug off large moral questions in the short term, but it has become clear that leads only to more turmoil down the line. So, here it is. I'm just reading stuff that, Ian, these are, this is the generation after you.
Right.
So there is a desire among Gen Zers in both the secular and religious world to return to a world that is tangible and good in and of itself. Take as a non-religious example the rise of Instagram and YouTube influencers learning how to cook and sew for themselves, getting farms, and living the lives that many in the past 40 years would have termed oppressive. Women in the Catholic Church are returning to veiling, and I have seen that. And it's not uncommon to find a Latin masses filled with young people. Mm-hmm. So I do, and I've seen that personally as a Catholic. Like, I like seeing ladies with veils on. I think it's a sign of respect and sacredness. But it's true, and a lot of those with veils are young.
Yeah,
they're not old ladies.
Yeah,
which I find interesting.
Right. Well, there's like a critical mass, I feel like, and this is what I've noticed in my own life, and I am a small portion of what I feel like is a bigger group of people that were far worse than I was. There's a point where, like, you can have everything immediate, you can have everything that's like mass produced and cheaply made and all that kind of stuff, and you can have whatever you want at the snap of your fingers. Sometimes it's not. There comes a point where you're no longer satisfied with, like, or you're depressed, or it's just the endless void in front of you of, like, what else is there except for, whatever it is. And I've had friends that have gone through this same sort of struggle as well, where it's like finding purpose, finding meaning, finding any sort of hope or optimism in a world where it feels like that's it's all just commercial, and there's no soul in anything. And that's why I think a return for some of that is to find answers to a world that they don't have answers to.
Well, I think,
to find or to make things that are going to stand the test of time and not going to fall apart and are not planned to be obsolete, and and it's not controlled by somebody else.
Right.
Bringing the control back into your hands. And like I said, there was a point in time where I used to really enjoy social media, but then it was I started to get that feeling a long time ago where I was like, I enjoy my life better when I can step away from this and not have to worry about it, not have to be involved in any of it. And then like a drug, it's like I feel hard pressed to even give myself to get back onto it, because then it's like I feel like if I do, I'm gonna stumble back into it, and then before you know, I'm gonna spiral into this like unhealthy habit of like I don't want to be this way. I had a little bout of it recently whenever I had Instagram has made a new social platform called Threads, and it's basically Twitter except it's owned and operated by Instagram. And I had I got my handle, like my username at Ian Wolf. I went ahead and set it aside, and then of course used it for a little bit. And then, of course, it was fun for a little bit until, like, all of a sudden, like, you can see when the mass came over, and all of a sudden, everyone that was upset with Twitter is now, on Threads and stuff like that. And then there was just some of the most heinous stuff, all regarding, Israel and Hamas or whatever else just this, brainless content of just, like, the nonsense. And I was like, oh, I now realized why I moved away from some of this, because it was just mind-numbing.
I will have to echo that. I think what's happened, the advances in tech and the promise that it gave everybody, wow, this is somehow we're going to transform the world. And I think people have realized the inherent limitations.
Yeah.
That it's not the magic answer for people. And I think we're reaching that point. I just do. I think that's what it's devolved into. It's devolved into people arguing over stupid stuff that people are tired of hearing about. You're starting to see now companies are backing off some of this woke stuff. I've noticed some of that have kind of backed off of that kind of stuff because they're realizing that people don't want to hear all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets to the point. It's like it's just noise after a while, and it's like, okay, we need to kind of get back to the basics a little bit here. You know, we got to get back to our humanity.
Yeah.
And actually be human beings to each other. And we're more than just a political idea or something like that. I mean, it's, and that's what I think I'm kind of sensing that a little bit in the younger generations. I really am. I'm thinking that it's like, you know, I'll kind of want to get back to a more, you know, kind of a real existence.
There's a lot of people in my demographic in the millennial age where it's like I lived in a time where I got to see dial-up internet. I got to see like internet in its in the modern age in its infancy and how the internet really works. And I've had people that are a little bit older than me that are still technically millennials that experienced it even well before I did. And getting to see like the convenience of it all, I feel like I was I was part of the people that pioneered that and made that happen over the course of the past 20, 30 years or whatever it may be. And the people that came after me, like my youngest brother, he was even on the cusp of that. And you know, people that are a little bit younger than he is that are still now in their 20s basically, and got to see people like myself that were like, I got to see the internet when it was basically nothing to where now it's like this consumerist nightmare, and it's a place where everyone can go to just scream into the void, and there's so many things that are great about it and so many things that are bad about it, and now everything with algorithms and how everything feels curated and everything feels controlled. It can be, I can see why people in my age range have shifted a little bit, and now, you know, people younger than me as well. Because I could talk to my brother. I can be like, I remember when things were different. And he was like, that sounds crazy. So, anyways.
I think there's a change where I think where tech is you're going to see some advances there. I think I think it's more in hardware. I think where you're going to see those advances. Yeah.
So, speaking of social media, though, I think if I could throw another prediction out there that I think I don't have hard stats on, but it could be a fun little thing that maybe I'm gonna throw this out there, and if it does come true, you heard it here first. Maybe is I think Elon Musk may get rid of Twitter.
You know, there's some predictions of him that just turned into.
There's a lot of stuff on like what people think about that and their ideas on him. I don't really have any things that I want to say towards him specifically, but I think that either it's gonna get out of hand, he's gonna lose control of it, or he's gonna sell it. I think that he has in this next year. There are a big automotive manufacturers are moving towards electronic vehicles in a very quick way.
And really, because Ford just shut all of their EV stuff down and laid everybody off, so they're getting away from it. Right. They're not going to it.
There's a lot of them that are. Mm-hmm. Chevrolet, Toyota, Nissan, Volkswagen, all of them have cars that in the next year are coming out that are supposed to be really big, affordable contenders against Tesla. And I think, and I would wager, that the money that Musk has tied up in Tesla and in SpaceX, I think is more important to him than Twitter.
He only bought Twitter because of the outright, the lack of free exchange. It became a point with him of like, right. You're shutting out half the population to be able to speak their mind, and you're favoring one side over another, and that's not free speech. And I know we'll say that, well, it's a private company, but the reality is it's...
Yeah. But regardless of all that kind of stuff, I just think it's going to come to a point possibly this year where, especially now that Threads is on the map now, I don't think it's as big as Twitter, but I think it is growing in popularity, so I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing more about that possibly. now that Twitter is X and it really has it's rebranded and everything that we know, even the word tweet is no longer a part of it. It's all posts now. So anything that was Twitter, all the iconography for it, all the stuff that made it so iconic and so part of its place in history is all gone. So Twitter and tweeting and tweets, all that stuff and retweeting, all that's gone. So like that is all a part of history now. And I think people still hold on to it and they still want it to be a real thing. And maybe one day someone will come back around and make Twitter again. But for right now, it is its own thing and it's called X. And I don't think that Elon Musk is going to hold on to it for very long. I wouldn't be surprised if in this next year, because he's going to try and focus more on Tesla and potentially SpaceX and funneling more money that way, that he's going to be selling it off and repurposing the funds for something else. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but I'm also not an analyst, economist. I'm not, I don't know. I don't have any insider knowledge if that's what you're looking for. But apparently ad revenue has been going down. There was a peak of it in 2021, and then of course it's gone down to basically half. So there's all the ad revenue money is all getting taken out of Twitter as well. So a lot of stuff happening, a lot of money being moved around there.
Yeah, I mean it's.
You brought up China a few minutes ago, and that's in his book, The Prophecies, Nostradamus predicted in 2024. And this is his quote: "Red adversary will become peril with fear, putting the great ocean in dread." Some analysts interpret that as an attack by China on Taiwan and the world going to war in that sea and ocean, fighting over Taiwan.
I mean, I worry about that because America's we have so many troops that are they're all over the place, and I just think we're too thin. And just like they said, I think China will see a weakness. And the question is, will we allow Chinese troops to march into Taiwan?
Well, that's why they were watching the Russian-Ukraine thing so closely. If Russia would have walked in there and took over Ukraine and nobody did anything about it, they would have attacked Taiwan. But because there was such a fight back and so many things, monies and weapons and supplies given to Ukraine to help them, they figured the same thing would happen to Taiwan. So maybe they're not ready to do that yet.
Well,
yeah. I mean, they've got all kind of things here. I mean, some of this stuff is you don't know, but I don't know. It's, I have hope that it'll be a good year.
Yep.
It's not all doom and gloom. So,
but this may be a controversial question to ask, but who do you think? Do you really think that Biden's going to get reelected this year? Or do you think that Trump is going to probably be the candidate? I know that we probably don't know most stuff, but
what I've read, most people think Biden's going to get reelected.
How? That's the only thing
that's what they say.
Right.
I mean, the polls right now are unless Biden steps out and they put either Gavin Newsom up there or Michelle Obama or some other, candidate. Gavin Newsom's been trying to make a name for himself.
Yeah.
It's really going to come down to, are they going to try to bring back another, is there going to be all of a sudden now another pandemic where everybody's going to go back to mail-in voting? And because, the fact of the matter is, as long as mail-in voting is allowed without some sort of verification, then it's just going to be rife for corruption to occur. I kind of wish mail-in voting didn't exist, or if it existed only if someone requested to vote by mail. And I think that's what it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be for our soldiers that were overseas that could still vote in the American electoral system.
Yeah, or, very old people who can't get out, or nursing home people, whatever the case may be. But I think it was just the ballot harvesting and going out there and actually looking for that kind of stuff that it just unfortunately caused a lot of the problems that we have, and why people feel like, there's an element of the population that believes that the election was stolen. So,
well, y'all need to do me a favor then. If this is my year to pass, you need to make sure that when I do pass, I do not come back and vote for Joe Biden.
Okay.
Stoney, you ain't gonna pass.
I need to quit
Just in case.
Well, I mean, we're all, that can happen to anybody.
I heard some things about inflation is actually like going down a little bit as opposed to going up, which is, I guess, nice. So that's something.
I don't think it could go down fast enough.
No, definitely not. That's why I said a little bit, but. All right. Well, I guess that's or do we have anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up this episode?
Well,
so we've had
we've touched on the unease in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, Taiwan. What about the economy? What do you think the economy? You think interest rates are going to come down?
That's what I was thinking.
I don't think so, not yet. I really don't think so.
Think there's still too much money out there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think I know enough about that to make a prediction on that, but maybe. Well.
Yeah, so it's we'll see what 2024 brings. It'll be a new year for me. So I
hope that at the very least that it's not a bad year. I know that there's going to probably be some scary stuff in history that's going to probably go down and changes and all that kind of stuff, which is all big things that are happening in the world, politically and otherwise. But it's going to be a big year for me, and I hope that I'm going to have some fun. And I'm turning 30, so I want to make it fun. I want to do some great stuff. I want to do some more things with this podcast, with other creative endeavors that I'm a part of. So I'm, if maybe the world will be burning down around me, but I'm going to be, partying out. So.
I can't wait for you to become my mentor this year.
Oh, yeah.
With the editing stuff.
You're
so
right.
I can be your backup in case you wanted to go on vacation or something.
Right.
So
that would be nice. Speaking of, I got a vacation coming up.
I know.
I'm so excited.
I predict you were going on vacation, and look, it came true. Look at that.
I think the biggest thing that's probably going to happen this year, that to me is the most, most likely, I think as jobs become automated, I think a lot of people are going to get laid off.
Yeah.
I think a lot of very low-skilled workers that work in fast food and stuff like that, you're going to see companies reacting to some of these states trying to push these, higher minimum wage laws, and so a lot of people are going to start getting laid off. So definitely I see that happening more and more.
Yeah. Especially like we had talked about earlier, the fact that AI is now coming in and being a whole new thing for businesses, and how it's become so, again, like everything else, so controlled and so commercialized that AI is going to be a whole new thing.
You're right.
All right. Well, for any of those out there that want to give us any comments or any predictions of your own, we have you can email us. It's getoffendedtogether@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us. We have a Facebook page /RetrospectPod, or we also have the YouTube channel all up and running now. So you can type in @RetrospectPod in the search bar of YouTube and find us that way, and give us little comments there, because we can also read them there and see what you have to say and all that stuff. But anyways, until next week, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Thank you for hanging out with us today. We appreciate it. You're the best. Peace.